Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today. For this one, as promised, we are going to kick off another new series on the channel. So we're going to start off with doing some malt reviews here. I'm not sure how often I'll be able to do these, just because of how much whiskey is and how often I'll have access to it, but I'll do them as they come, and I seriously hope you guys enjoy them. But the first whiskey we're going to kick off with then is the Talisker Dark Storm. I've never tried anything from Talisker, and these guys are the only distillery on the Isle of Skye, so really looking forward to this one actually. This one's matured in charred casks and supposed to be quite smoky and peaty, so that's the kind of flavours I'll like if you know anything from my beer reviews, if you've seen those before. But very much looking forward to this one, and I hope you guys enjoy the review. A shout out to Ralphie at Ralphie Stuff as well. He's got a great channel where he looks at all of these whiskies, and he's been doing it for years actually, so I'm a bit of an amateur compared to him, so you can check out his channel as well. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the distillery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the distillery website, the link to my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Talisker. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more reviews, do consider subscribing to the channel. Check out the beer and sake reviews as well. The whole channel uses a geography based tagging system, so you can search for things based on that. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other breweries, distilleries and things that you'd like me to check out. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and your support is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Talisker then. So Talisker are based in Carbust on the Isle of Skye, and they're the island's oldest and to date only working whisky distillery. So the distillery was founded in 1830 by Hugh and Kenneth MacAskill, and it was built in 1831 after they acquired the lease of Talisker House from the MacLeod clan. They'd actually had a few false starts on various different sites apparently before they finally got this lease sorted out. But Kenneth managed the distillery until his death in 1854, with Hugh dying 9 years later. When they passed on, the business was then taken over by Kenneth's son-in-law, but he unfortunately went bankrupt the same year. The distillery was then under the ownership of a Mr. Anderson, who was convicted of fraud and thus obliged to sell. And apparently at this point it really was the reputation of Talisker that actually saved it, because a lot of people enjoyed the whisky. But at this point in came Alexander Allen and Roderick Kemp, who were men of experience actually. They had a lot of experience distilling whisky up in Speyside, one of the famous regions in Scotland of course for whisky. But this partnership lasted until 1892, when Kemp sold his share to Allen and then went on to buy the Macallan distillery. So Talisker was then merged with Dilwyn Distillery, and it was then under the management of Thomas Mackenzie until his death in 1916. At this point the company was then bought by a consortium which later evolved into what is today known as Diageo, one of the really big drinks makers here in Scotland. But the building itself was apparently rebuilt during the period of 1880 to 87, and it was then extended in the early 1900. They had to completely rebuild the stillhouse in 1960 after a fire completely destroyed the distillery, and after this they built exact replicas of the original stills to preserve the original Talisker flavour. So I think that's a pretty cool feat of engineering actually. But today they operate 5 steam heated stills, 2 wash stills and 3 spirit stills, and these implement warm tubs rather than the modern condenser, and they say that this gives the whisky a fuller flavour. In the early days apparently they produced their whisky using a triple distilling method, but they've moved to a more conventional double distilling method as of 1928, and today they have a capacity of 3.5 million litres of spirit per year. The malt that they source is from the Muir of Ord, and the water source is from Hawk Hill, which is just up from the distillery apparently, and this is connected to them on basically a path of wells and pipes, they were saying. But when it comes down to the distillery, apparently it runs over peat, and this is what gives Talisker much of its kind of smoky and peaty flavour apparently. So yes, very, very unique distillery, as most of them are here in Scotland of course. And we'll get on to the tasting section now. They've got a few different whiskies. As I say, you can check out the distillery website in the description below and you can learn all about those. This one itself is 45.8% ABV, the old 80 proof of course, and it's aged in a charred cask. So I'll bring up the camera and get the bottle out and let you guys have a little look at this one. It's absolutely beautifully presented, as you can see. You can see this is the outline of the Isle of Skye just down here. As you can see, Talisker Dark Storm. It says on here, a deep, dark and rich Talisker matured in selected heavily charred casks to give extra spice and smoke. It's got Hugh MacAskill's signature on the side there, and it says on the back here, Imagine a mighty storm at sea. You have Talisker Dark Storm with single malt that takes an intense whisky experience to a new level. Its rich flavour, dramatised by careful cask selection, Talisker Dark Storm is matured in heavily charred oak casks to reinvigorate the palate with a whole ocean of spice and smoke. Bottled at a premium strength of 45.8%, Talisker Dark Storm faces you with all the wild, untamed spirit of full-blown storm at sea. Travel retail exclusive, Hugh McCaskill. So yeah, Talisker Distillery, Carboast, Isle of Skye, Scotland, IV47 8SR. So yeah, very much looking forward to this one then. So we'll get this guy out and see how we get on. You can see the label that's on the bottle here is much the same as you would expect, nicely presented, and you can see the colour of this one's a really nice amber colour. It's a really nice kind of rich ambery colour one, this. So we'll see how we get on with this. Very much looking forward to having a go of this. So yeah, 1 litre bottle. You can see the nice wee cork there, and we'll get some of this out and into the glass. It actually smells quite sweet when I've just opened it up there. It smells lovely. I'm going to drink this neat, of course. I always find that's the best way to do it with whisky. So we'll just take a little bit of it just now, and we'll see how we get on. If we need to take more, we will take a little bit more. So yeah, as you can see, it's a nice kind of rich amber colour, this one. You can see it is completely see-through, which is always the case with whisky, but it looks absolutely lovely. So yeah, in terms of the aroma of this one, yeah, that's really interesting. It does smell kind of quite sweet. You've got a nice big peaty, earthy thing going on in there. You can smell a bit of citrus coming out of it as well, actually. I think that is quite citrusy, to be honest. Yeah, it's got a sort of interesting kind of almost earthy spice to it, actually. So you've got this nice kind of smoky, peaty character up front. You can smell that it's a bit almost peppery and spicy. And there's a lot, as you get with many whiskies actually, there's a big oaky richness to this one. And it's one thing, in comparison to when I do my beer reviews, you can smell the alcohol of this, of course, at 45.8%. You wouldn't expect anything less. But this one, it's really interesting. With that oaky note that you're getting in the spice, you've got a kind of butterscotch thing mixed in with this. It's really quite interesting. But there's a bit, I think there's a bit of citrus in there, and you can almost get a kind of, almost an appley kind of ester thing coming out. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that. There's a little bit of a kind of apple ester coming out of this. It smells lovely, it's quite sweet. You can smell a bit of the salty character as well. It comes across to me as just a little bit salty, very sweet, smoky, bit of peatiness in there. Kind of almost peppery spice as well, actually. But the oaky wood character is lovely. You've got some of that butterscotch sweetness in there, and you can get just a little bit of an almost appley, not quite peary. It's a kind of, it's those lighter esters. It reminds me of some of the beers I drink when you get some of these lighter esters, but it definitely has a sort of appley note to it. So yeah, kind of maybe leathery and is another word that you could use to describe this one. But yeah, a lovely smelling whiskey this. So before you taste it, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma. It should be absolutely lovely. So let's crack into this one then. The Talisker Dark Storm from the Isle of Skye here in Scotland, Slangia. Yeah, you know, I can see what they mean on the label. This is lovely. I mean, if you've watched my beer reviews and things before, you know that I'm a bit of a sucker for kind of smoky, or sort of meaty smoky, and also peaty smoky beers. And the same goes for whiskey. You know, I love these whiskies that have a good bit of peaty malt base to them. But that's lovely. With this one, it's very, very smooth actually. You've got a nice smoky character to this one, and it starts to come out more on the tail end of it as well. On the tail end, you're getting this almost spicy, smoky character. It's almost like you've taken a kind of it's almost like you've just put a little bit of pepper on your tongue. It does have just that little bit of kick on the back of it from these pepper flavours. And I'm just taking very, very small sips of this. But that's nice. That really is quite interesting. It's a completely different game, of course, from tasting beer. Whiskey is very, very different. But yeah, you've got a nice, very smooth character to this one. It's big, it's kind of smoky. That woody presence that you can detect in the aroma is definitely there. It's a big kind of oaky character. As I was saying, there's some kind of spices in here as well. It's a little bit, I find it quite peppery, sort of peppercorny. That's the kind of thing I'm getting from this one. But it's got a little bit of fruity character as well. It's almost, on the other end, it's almost like a very, very light kind of, it's almost like a little bit of red fruit. It's quite interesting. You can feel it just behind the front kind of curve of your palate there. I'm getting a little bit of a slightly reddish fruity ester or something. But that's really nice. It's not, I would say, it's not the smokiest whiskey I've come across or the peatiest whiskey that I've come across. But it's lovely. It blends these flavours together really well. It's very, very smooth. That's the first thing you're going to notice about this one. Like I say, that woody flavour, that sort of woody, oaky thing that's going on in this one is absolutely lovely. That's kind of just underpinning the whole thing, and the smokiness. You can get the charred character in there. You can really feel that those two flavours are blending in there well together. The spiciness is interesting as you move into the sort of tail end of this whiskey. Like I say, it's the smokiness. It's a bit of that kind of peppercorn thing that's coming out, and behind the front curve of the palate, actually, I'm getting a little bit of that fruity ester. Maybe there's a tiny little bit of citrus in there as well. And to me, just from my beer tasting days, it tastes a little bit floral. For me, there is a little bit of a slightly floral character from this one, which is quite interesting. But maybe that's something that I'm just picking up, and my palate isn't as good for whiskey as it is for beer, of course. But this is nice. I mean, it's smoky. Woody character is absolutely lovely. It's a very rich wood, and you can feel that charred thing mixing together. As I said, the peppercorn flavours are there, and that spicy, that kind of peppercorny spice that's coming out of this one is lovely. A little bit of red fruit, a little bit of citrus as well, and you can get the saltiness of this. Really, that comes out in the tail end as well. For me, there is quite a little bit of salty character coming out of this whiskey. Yeah, especially when you sugar over your palate a little bit, you can feel a little bit of that saltiness coming out of this one. It's a really interesting whiskey. I've never quite had one like this before, so if you get the chance to get a bottle of this, have a go of it, because it's pretty damn nice actually. In terms of the mouth of this one, I'd say this is pretty full bodied, but then again, I would find most whiskies full bodied. For me, it starts off with a nice kind of smoky character. It comes in and it's quite smoky. It gets a little bit sweet in the middle from the woody characters, and there's a little bit just of a kind of nice oaky flavour going on in this one. As I say, that gives it a little bit of sweetness, and then as you move into the aftertaste, it becomes smoky and the spiciness comes out a bit more and it becomes a little bit drier. But I mean, overall, lovely whiskey. I would drink this one again. I don't drink much whiskey. I like it as a taster thing. I'll try it every so often if there's a kind of special one. But this one is pretty damn good, I have to say, and I can see why it's pretty well sought after. So very, very solid effort once again from Talisker. I'm saying once again, this is my first Talisker tasting actually, so I'm very impressed with these guys. Hopefully I can try more of their whiskies in the future. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed my first malt tasting that I've done for you. This one's really nice. It suits me down to a T because I love the nice kind of peaty, smoky flavours, and that woody character that this one has is quite unusual compared to the other smoky whiskies that I've had before. This one is, but it's absolutely lovely. Give it a go, quite sought after, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it if you come across it. So make sure you buy up a bottle of this one. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed my first malt review. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this whisky and your favourite whiskies from this distillery too. Let me know all that in the comment section below. Always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos. But until the next time, slange just now, and I will catch you soon. Make sure you check out the beer reviews and the sake reviews I've been doing as well, and hopefully I can return very soon with some more whisky reviews. So I'll catch you soon, and I hope you've enjoyed this one. Slange just now.